Hello again. It's Andy Vining here again with my mother's diaries, the next instalment. Episode 4, May 1948. May began with the yard still lively from the puppies. They had all been sold now to friends and through the Southern Daily Echo advert we'd placed. We decided to keep Jessie, Raffles, and Mr. Legs for another week or two before they would have to leave. There is always a bustle when pups are about, feeding bowls, straw, sharp little claws, and that lovely puppy smell that always lingers in the memory. And though one is glad when good homes are found, the yard always seems strangely empty once they go. Margaret Haskell, Jennifer's friend, whose family run the sand and gravel business in Chandler's Ford, stayed the first night of the month, and there were callers. Marjorie, Doug, and Malcolm West dropped in for their eggs. Nora Baisley, Judith, Veronica, and George all paid us a visit. Bet and Fred had secured their job at last, which was great news. We were so pleased for them. John turned his attention to the front lawn, turfing a worn patch that had suffered through the winter. He then went over to Norman Cooper's in Hursley to chat some more about jerseys and starting the Hiltonbury herd of pedigree jerseys. I stayed home and wrote letters, keeping in touch with friends and family, and I also telephoned the Sinclairs, our friends from Cantley Wokingham, inviting them for Whitsun. There is always something to plan ahead for, and on Monday we went into Winchester. We took a small bull calf to market in the back of the car, in a sack with its little head poking out. Never an easy sight. But it was fortunate that this one was in a sack, because it would have made a right mess in the car with what it did. And that's another smell that stays with you for life. But such comings and goings are the rhythm of farming life. But small bull calves fetch very little money at market when they are sold, but they still have to go, unfortunately. We turned the heifers out into the sanatorium field, where the grass was coming along nicely. They took it well enough, heads down almost at once, testing the new grass. The land was improving with the seasons. Rain fell in the night, which would freshen the grazing and help the vegetable rows as well. School dancing filled part of the week at Mrs. St. John's, and the children were quick to learn, especially once the music began. At home there were smaller tasks, mending, tending to what was needed, doing in the house, and I had another practice drive up and down the lane in the car. I don't think I'll ever get the hang of this driving business. The weather held bright, but with a sharp wind. John attended his Gromall meeting at the Clock Inn in Fair Oak. Farming, fertiliser, and yields of milk and corn are serious talk these days, but there to cheer us up always are the nightingales singing in the hedgerows at dusk. Their song carrying over the fields with surprising strength, and it's just so beautiful to hear. Trips to Eastleigh were fitted in between the work, and we went to the summer house, the Baisleys' home at the garden nurseries. And Nora tried to sell me a pair of red shoes, though they were a bit too large and didn't fit very well. There was gardening to be done, always something to weed or set straight, and John went and attended the regular farm sale at Bar End in Winchester, looking over the stock and the equipment as farmers do, weighing up value with a practiced eye, but he didn't buy anything this week. By the 8th of the 1st, hen's eggs were beginning to hatch. There is a distinct sound when a chick works its way free, a faint tapping and then a fracture line across the shell. On the 9th of May, 10 ducks hatched cleanly, 10 out of 10, a most satisfactory result. They were moved carefully, and by the next day Janet shifted their run so that they could reach the pond. Once there, they took to the water instinctively, tiny bodies skimming the surface while the older birds all stood and watched. The geese were far more troublesome. The first gosling hatched weakly and required help from Michelle, which I gave it. Another struggled and was unfortunately trodden on by the hen. One of those losses one must accept in poultry keeping. I kept one egg warm on the kitchen stove to help the hatch, and it worked well. And by midweek, the little gosling was stronger, and I placed it between its mother at night. Later in the month, 2 more were hatched without assistance, sturdier for it, and on the 18th, 3 more followed, though again with difficulty. But we helped, and they arrived safely. Goose eggs seldom give up their young very easily. They demand watchfulness, between those hatchings, but nature has a way of working things out. Life went on steadily. John attended lodge in Hursley. There were visits to mothers at Beechcroft, where the children's hair was washed. Marjorie and Doug West called in as usual for their eggs, and I was often darning late in the evening. With all the children, there seemed to be a lot of darning to do. Then Mary Sinclair and the children arrived for the weekend, and we had a lot to chat about, and we stayed up late talking to them. John went to cricket, while the children attended a party in Beechwood Crescent. The weather turned hot and windy, drying the ground quickly. The children grew sunburned outside, playing in the sunshine. Another goose egg popped, though, but 2 proved no good, unfortunately. Such disappointments are common enough, but still always felt such a loss. On the 18th, Mary and the children were taken to Eastleigh Station for their journey home. They had been lovely company for the weekend, and it was wonderful to see them. While in Eastleigh, I went shopping, and then on the way home, I made a call at Beechcroft to see how they all were. That same day, all the children except Jennifer weren't very well, which made for an anxious household, not sure what the problem was, but they were soon all okay. I washed the dogs in warble mixture against the flies. Not a pleasant job, but something that has to be done and very necessary. Uncle came for his pup, so Jessie went with him. And though it was unexpected, it was sad to see him go, and it left the place quieter. On the 20th, there was a trip to Winchester for some gallicas for some reason. Our man had not delivered this week. Maybe he was ill. Fred and Jessie called in for the last pup, and it was another small farewell, sadly all gone now to their new homes. One does grow used to animals moving on, but there is always a moment's pause when the gate closes behind them, and it goes silent. There were birthday gatherings. Judith's party was at the summer house in Eastleigh, and more duckling hatched later in the month. 8 in one day. Ducks everywhere now, all the little things swimming on the pond, having a wonderful time. We went to tea at the Wests, and we walked home through the rain that at last came steadily. The ground really needed it and would welcome it. Cold weather followed briefly, and Andrew was unwell and remained home from Mrs. St. John's for the morning. The vegetable garden was admired by Joan and Les Beaton. They came up to have a look. All at the carrots, carefully weeded, rose straight and promising. Lovely rain fell again, soaking in, rather than running off the ground. Betty cleaned out the kitchen cupboard one day, and Mr. and Mrs. Peck stayed for tea with their daughter Veronica. And conversation, clothes were ordered from Daniels and the children. There was more dancing at Mrs. St. John's school, and I cut out a muslin blouse for Jennifer. The 29th was wet throughout, keeping most work indoors. Needlework was done, and I listened to a play on the wireless. The following day, Mrs. St. John sent a basket of plants, and I spent the evening planting them in the garden. John tidied the bank in the front garden, shaping it neatly, all looking very smart. And as the month closed, more rain fell heavily in the morning, though I managed the washing regardless, and it dried, all hanging in the kitchen. We drove up to the village with John and had a cuppa at Dean's hardware shop with Winnie Dean, and John had a long chat with Frank about a coal delivery. We took Heather to Beechcroft to be looked after, and then we went into Winchester to the Fricks to see The Best Years of Our Lives with Myrna Loy and Harold Russell. He's a real-life disabled war veteran who won 2 Academy Awards for his role, something unique in Austria history, and it was a very, very good film. The month ended as it had been throughout. Steady work, young stock arriving, some losses, some successes, grass coming on with the rain at last, and the constant tending that farming requires. Ducks on the pond, cows to be milked, goslings under watch, heifers settled into fresh pasture, vegetables pushing through the soil. May was not dramatic, but it was full, and the farm moved forward as it always must do. June 1948 opened unsettled, with showers never quite deciding whether to dry. Jennifer and Janet went off to the flicks at the Empire to see Dick Barton's special agent, and then Mrs. Joan Beaton from Pine Road again came opposite Mrs. St. John's school, bought another lovely bunch of pinks. I put some on Dad's grave, which always feels right when the flowers are fresh. Mr. Westbrook came for pullets, another small shifting of stock from yard to elsewhere. John went to the rent audit at Weeks and Greens in Southampton on the 2nd, then went on to the cricket at the county ground. Australia versus Hampshire, the whole day given over to it. I went to school and taught Chris and Peter a rather funny dance, which made them laugh and pleased them enormously. At home, the children were busy picking gooseberries for bottling. The bushes were heavy enough this year, and there is satisfaction in seeing jars lined up in the pantry ready for winter. The weather turned rotten again by the 3rd, and the Australians were all out for 117 in their first innings. Hampshire got 195, though the rain stopped play in the afternoon. It was that sort of damp day when washing never quite dries and boots gather mud before one reaches the gate. School dancing continued steadily, and I had my hair done on the 4th, a little treat for myself. On Saturday, we went to Eastleigh Police Sports Day, and I have never been so cold in my life. It was freezing, and I was really, really pleased to get home. June can deceive one so easily. Rain persisted into Sunday. John tried to start digging in the front garden, but the ground was too wet to work properly. Big Uncle Fred came, and Mr. and Mrs. Roberts and Mrs. Manning as well. So many visitors. That night, torrents of rain and gales battered the farm. One lies awake in such weather, listening for loose slates on the roof and wondering how the fields and the cattle are standing it. One morning I went to Southampton with Betty and bought myself a new blue costume. Quite a good shade, but I had to slightly alter it the next day and spent the evening darning. Margaret and Pat brought their pony up and rode him in the hockey field. The sight of a pony and the kids riding is always a good sight to see. There were trips to Eastleigh. Andrew had new trousers and a pullover, and John got a new Mac. School and dancing at Mrs. St. John's in the afternoon, then more sewing in the evenings. Then in the garden, lettuce was planted out, and the lawn mown whenever the weather allowed. Janet's party on the 11th brought a great bustle, loads of children. I did a deal of cooking, blancmanges, jellies, and everything that would please the children. The Wests and Virginia Heck came, and the party itself was very, very happy. Janet was given a bicycle, and she was thrilled with it. I wore my new look frock. Betty came in for the whole day to help, which made all the difference. And between visitors and outings, the farm work went on. On the 13th, with marvellous weather at last, bantam eggs were put under a broody hen. One must seize the right day for doing them. The following day, Betty and I took the children to Muddyford for a day out in the sunshine, and Mother kindly looked after Heather. And though the car broke down, we had a lovely day. Frank Bower and family, old friends, called in from Wokingham, and a man came to tune the piano. Not that the children play on it much. John had his doctor's medical examination, and all's well with that, thank goodness. Very healthy. Haymaking began in earnest on the 16th, and John was busy picking up hay from the front field, working against the weather, which we could see and hear was coming. And on the 17th, we were so glad that the hay had been got in just in time, for rain came again that night. There is always a race with hay, sun against the cloud, dry grass against the weathering damp. To get it under cover before the rain is a victory in itself, and stood us in well for winter feed for the cattle. The 18th bought a furniture sale at Ruff's on Hook Road. 13 wine glasses for £1. A good buy, I thought. That would be £32 today in 2026. At school, I gathered the boys' dance for the girls. I altered the boys' dance for the girls. As one boy was going, there are always adjustments to be made. A broody hen was sent over to Mrs. Richardson's in Flexford, and on the 19th she had some eggs she wanted her hen for. I went to Southampton shopping while the others attended a show on the Common. 2 blouses for myself and 2 shirts for John, but it was cold and wet again. This month refuses to settle. Sunday the 20th was our at-home day. Bet and Fred came, Doug, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis and Jean, then panic. In the midst of the day, cows got onto the road at Flexford again. We really must do something more with that fence. Nothing stirs a household quicker than loose cattle on the road. The front lawn was cut, and we had new peas and potatoes from the garden with cold tongue for dinner when Mother and Bella called in the evening. And then rain again on the 21st. It never seems to stop. Bet has a bad leg at the moment, so she sat in the kitchen table and cleaned the silver for me. We all went to George's birthday party over in Eastleigh, quite a gathering, but we missed poor father, as he used to enjoy those gatherings. More shopping in Southampton on the 22nd, a new Mac and shoes, and at last I finished the darning that accumulated in the evening. The 23rd was a grand day. John and I left at 8 in the morning for the Royal Counties show with Norman and Kath Cooper. A fine day all round, and Norman won the prize for the best Jersey herd. There is nothing quite like seeing good stock judged well. A fine line of Jerseys with their soft brown coats and alert heads. The result of careful breeding and feeding, and certainly a herd to copy, as we fully intend to follow Hersey Jersey's footsteps. Back home, strawberry jam was made, 7 pounds of it, the scent of it filling the kitchen, and all stored in the larder in the pantry. The girls' costumes were finished and made for their play, and Heather and I walked down to Ramaley, and I noticed that the Swedes planted there, however, had fly on them. Not a good sign, and something to watch. I went back to the farm and told John, and he was onto it straight away. On the 26th, Hurst the Imp, a little Willie as we used to call him, bulled his first cow, a milestone of sorts on our journey to our pedigree Jersey herd. Nora and the family called in, and Eric Coates and Phyllis from Southampton arrived as well. More visitors. Some of our chicks were delivered to Mrs. South, the builder's wife, and then the weather turned cooler with a nasty wind by the 27th. Darning was finished for the week, and Les and Joan Beaton also came back for some eggs, and they brought some raspberries with them. That's a fair exchange. Then little Sooty, our cat, had kittens on the 28th. We knew she'd been expecting, but did not know where she'd had her kittens, so we started looking for the sheds and the barns, but could find no sign of them. I did the usual washing, and it dried early in the day, but by evening another bad thunderstorm had broken. The bantam mother left her eggs in the disturbance, and I feel they may be spoiled, but she went back on them, so only time will tell. John and the men then put up wire fencing around the pond, safety for both children and stock. 4 broody hens were set ready for young chicks that were due to come on Friday. There was always something incubating somewhere on a farm in June, eggs, plans, and hopes for a yield. On the last day of the month, Mother and Bella came for tea. The front lawn was cut, and at last Sooty's kittens were found in the stable. 3 black, 1 tabby, and 1 black and white. Snug into the hay, very cosy and warm. June had been an unsettled in weather month, but full in work. Hay safely gathered, cows watched, calves growing, broody set, chicks delivered, stock judged, jam boiled, fences mended. The farm breathed through such moments, half at the mercy of sky and half governed by steady hands. And so we move into the summer of July and August 1948. I wonder what will happen then, but that's for next week. Thank you for listening. I'll see you soon again.